On February 16, 2023, lawmakers in Portugal sent the internet into a meltdown when it announced, among a few sharp measures, that it would be ending the golden visa in Portugal. An unreasonable amount of commentators online rejoiced at the decision. But here's what they don't get and what you need to know about this rash decision. Let's first talk about the wider context of the golden visas, or citizenship by investment, that occurs in Europe. Also remember that European countries aren't the only ones that do this. The United States, for example, has a golden visa that requires an $800,000 investment. In Europe, countries like Germany, Greece, Cyprus, Malta, Portugal, Spain, Ireland, and the United Kingdom have all offered some sort of golden visa. In recent years, and certainly accelerated by the war in Ukraine, the EU has called upon countries to scrap their programs due to security risks and calls for greater transparency. The UK has ended their program, Ireland has done the same. Both of these countries have done it for similar reasons, as concerns about dirty money grew. Portugal, however, is claiming something different. In February 2023, Portugal's Prime Minister, António Costa, announced the country is ending its lucrative residence by investment scheme to tackle property and rent price speculation. But will it actually work, or was it a political ploy to ease concerns from voters? What's the real impact on housing for locals in consideration of this visa? Because for years, people in the real estate industry, and even more outside of the real estate industry, have stated that some properties were priced higher simply to meet the financial threshold of the golden visa investment. Just a quick note on Portugal's golden visa is that it's not just for real estate. However, as the numbers show, the main use of this visa was indeed to purchase real estate rather than any other form of investment, by a long shot. Allow me to explain a little about the history of this visa so we can try to understand its potential impact on housing prices. In October 2012, that's just a little more than 10 years ago, this new visa was released. We have data provided by CEF, which is the government agency that's responsible for issuing visas, that gets us up to January 2023. CEF says the Golden Visa program has generated over 6,797,500,634 euros and 88 cents. But, and this is a very important but, of that nearly 6.8 billion, 6.1 billion was attributed to a real estate investment. So for simple math, that's around 90% of the total money invested in this visa scheme. Now, before you start screaming, "I told you so, real estate investment is the problem," we need to look even deeper at these numbers. The 6 billion euros of investment was across the last 10 years. And yes, the popularity has picked up, but the number of people and families this scheme is giving access to Europe is also important to take into account. It's also really interesting to note that if we look at applications by investment type, 92% of the applicants were for a real estate investment. So that just about aligns with the total money invested. By the way, the other types of investments are for things like starting a business or capital transfer, which in my opinion should still be considered if we are to take the Prime Minister's words as truth. There are 5 sub-paragraph categories for capital transfers, which you could argue would really help the Portuguese economy. And certainly the one business sub-paragraph investment option would have a more tangible impact on local economies where the businesses are established. With that curiosity out of the way, let's go back to real estate like Chip and Joanna Gaines, where there are more fascinating numbers that might surprise you and likely don't fit the narrative of what people are saying online. But before we do that, I want you to keep this in context and how you believe these numbers impact real estate prices and availability when it comes to the issues Portugal is currently facing in regards to an affordable housing shortage. Since October 2012 until now, there have been 11,628 Golden Visa investors and 18,962 total family members that have benefited from the Golden Visa. Where are these people coming from, you might ask? Guess. I'll wait. The top 5 nationalities since the inception of the Golden Visa scheme in 2012 are in order from 1st to 5th. China, Brazil, USA, Turkey, South Africa. Are any of these surprising? Don't say, "Aha, I knew it. Americans are always ruining stuff." We need to look a little deeper, okay? Let's go. China, 5,247, Brazil, 1,168, USA, 558, Turkey, 547, South Africa, 508. So Brazil at number 2 is 2 times more than Turkey in 4th place, and China is 10 times the investment numbers of the US in 3rd place. South Africa in at number 5 is only 50 less resident permits than the US despite a population 5 times smaller. You might be thinking the US has been in the news more. Taking a look at this chart from January 2022 to December 2022, which is what we have numbers for, yes, US and China are fairly even and have certainly outpaced Brazil. However, the interest from the others group is greater than the US and China combined. But keep in mind that bar graphs can be cute visuals to show proportions of a total, for example, but this little orange section in June of 2022 only represents 30 applications from the US. Shocking, I know. So if we look at a pie chart of all the investors by nationality, it would look like this. And from 2020 to 2022, Americans didn't have as much interest in moving to Portugal compared to now. Okay, so with 30,344 total new people added to the country by way of residence permit in basically 10 years, that's an average of 3,000 people a year. Portugal's population has increased by 0.29% by way of the visa. How big of a total impact does 0.29% of the population make? Well, if 10,668 applicants made 6.1 billion euros in investment, that averages out to 571,803 euros per purchase, which isn't nothing. But these days in Lisbon or Algarve, it's not obscene either. I guess my question is, how many people that need to benefit from the More Housing Act would be looking at properties in excess of €500,000? This leads me to the government statement on what applicants might be required to do once the proposal is ratified, which, by the way, it's not been ratified yet. That process could take at least another month and might not be enforced for another year. Why is that? Well, because the Assembly of the Republic is the one that will be responsible for approving the changes after receiving a proposal with the content of the measures that were announced. Basically, they'll read the proposal and vote on it. So from when the statements from the PM were made, there's a 1-month period of time for public hearing, and then a final proposal will be sent to Parliament for discussion on March 16th, where it'll take 15 to 20 days for approval. The President of the Republic may react to it in a couple of different ways, from accepting it to rejecting it to requesting new wording on the current proposal. But keep in mind, the last change to the Golden Visa program, for example, was announced by the government in December 2020, with the changes only being implemented on January 1st, 2022. Okay, so back to the Golden Visa real estate investors. Option 1, live in the property themselves, or at least have family live in it. Option 2, place the property on the long-term rental market. Is this a good measure? In theory, with politics aside, yes. It would likely put more houses on the long-term rental market. How many? Who knows? How much will rent be? Who knows? Will it be earmarked for affordable housing or at fair market price? Those are two totally different numbers when talking about a house that costs in excess of €500,000. Okay, 10,668 real estate investment applicants purchase at least one property, because remember, the investment could be made as a portfolio purchase where more than one property was purchased when the minimum investment threshold was met. I wish I had numbers on this, but we're going to have to make some assumptions here because I don't have hard data in front of me. These applicants purchased 10,000 properties. Yes, I rounded down. As of 2021 stats, there are between 3.5 and 3.6 million buildings in Portugal. That's 0.28% of the total national inventory. Please remember that these purchases were a mix of new builds and properties to be renovated, which, let's be honest, is a great thing because people were incentivized to take a property that wasn't habitable and make it habitable again. Back to the former, the new builds. Portugal has seen a rise in building inventory of only 0.8% in the last 10 years, which is a shockingly low number. Whose fault is it? I don't know, but I don't think it's the Golden Visa's fault that it's only 0.8%. Let's get to the bigger motivation for many people that reach out to us asking about information on the Golden Visa. Around 10% of the messages we receive on a weekly basis are questions about the Golden Visa, which is fine with us, but it's not really something that we focus on, and it's probably because we're not rich. We know ultimately what people are looking for and asking about when they write us, and 90% of the people that write us asking about the Golden Visa all want the same thing, which is what other visas in Portugal provide. I've given you enough time to guess it. People want to live in Portugal and want to get a European passport. Portugal's Golden Visa's stay requirement is one of the shortest in Europe, with a requirement of 7 days in year 1 and 14 days in the subsequent years before applying for citizenship. But if you want to live in Portugal for the majority of the year, the other visas like the D7 or the D8 visa will do the trick. Both of those visas offer a pathway to citizenship after 5 years, assuming you meet the requirements. How does this compare to the Golden Visa? It's the exact same. With the Golden Visa in Portugal, it too is a 5-year waiting period to get the beautiful burgundy colored passport. So if you thought all hope was lost because you were eyeing a Golden Visa to get to an EU passport and live in Portugal, don't fret. There's a pathway to citizenship to this amazing country via a residency visa. If you want to know your options or you want some assistance, get in touch with us and we can help. If you like animated videos like this one and you're interested in the real estate market in Portugal, you'll love this video right here. Now, let's get moving.